Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the Mission Debrief. It's going to be a fun episode. We're going to have a fun time today. Are you going to have fun today?
Oh, yeah.
See, I already predicted it. Mission number
145.
That's right. Just a few days out from Mission 145. Let's start. Okay, first of all, we need to talk about the sponsor, right?
This podcast is brought to you by Specialty Gas House.
And this flight was sponsored by
Grateful Americans. Are you familiar with the whole Grateful American terminology?
Are you familiar with any Grateful Americans? Yes, look at me. I'm right here. I'm grateful.
Are you familiar with what the sponsorship term Grateful American means?
In general, but I would like to know, actually.
So Grateful American is actually, like, obviously, I think there's something unique about every sponsor that we get the opportunity to partner with. And I think if you really step back, all of them are Grateful Americans, but it's basically just all donations that are coming into Honor Flight. It's like, $5 here, $100
Correct. And we
here.
talked about that. Everybody gives in different capacities. They can.
Yeah.
Right? We're not all a big corporation.
Correct. And every penny that Honor Flight Columbus gets goes directly into flying the veterans. So whether it be, to pay for the overhead of the office so that we have a place to organize and do logistics and, get things actually physically ready for the flight, store the medical bags, all that, or it's literally, pays for the food of a veteran. Either way, every penny goes back to flying veterans.
I like how we say it, sponsored by Grateful Americans and the way you're presenting it, because yes, I've worked with nonprofits before where campaigns are always separated by big hitters and then people that can give $1 or $5 or $10, whatever they can give. A lot of people, when they donate, it's natural. It's a given thing where they want to see exactly what it's going to.
Absolutely.
Like if I say, I'm giving to, his Children's Foundation, I want to see a kid on a bicycle,
right.
that was given to them to make them smile, right? Well, this, you can physically see it. Go to Facebook, go to Instagram. You're going to see people that went on a flight because you gave $5.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
And I think people probably think, oh, I didn't give that much or whatever. I mean, that's like, I fall in that boat. Like I don't have a ton of money.
But think about that. $5, you gave $5 and a veteran got to sit down, relax and have a lunch. And that lunch, you purchased, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Well, and what I love about even a lot of our bigger sponsorships as well is that a lot of them are funded by the employee give back programs at these organizations, which is such a cool way for employees to choose an organization that they are passionate about and give untaxed money. And so
I didn't know that.
Yeah. So like Nationwide does it. Abbott is a big one that does it. I believe Battelle does it. And it just allows people to be invested in Honor Flight and also like be rewarded by their organization by giving them that providing the facilities in which to give the untaxed donation, because then we benefit because we're getting more money. You benefit because it's untaxed donation, and the company benefits for having that partnership. So it's really a win-win-win.
What would you consider?
And then the veterans benefit.
Right. And I've heard you talk about before about, say, we'll take for example, Kroger, right?
Mm-hmm.
About
yeah.
How does that work?
Yeah, it's actually super similar now that you bring that up. So if you go to Kroger in, I'm not exactly sure how far out it reaches in Ohio, but certainly in Central Ohio, you can, because Kroger has gone to the app now, much to many of our veterans' dismays. But you download the app and then you can actually choose with your Kroger Plus card an organization to give money to for every purchase you make. And Honor Flight Columbus is one of those.
Wow.
Yeah, so we should honestly talk about that more. I'm glad you brought that up because I think that's just a simple way that we can partner with our communities, and it's pretty awesome that Kroger has allowed us to kind of be the name on that list.
Yeah.
We did one similar. We did it with Target. Theirs was like a running campaign, so however much, and it brought in $10,000. Like it was not small pocket change.
Right.
But we got to 10,000 because of all the individuals who were choosing, and probably because of how many times I went to Target. We'll be honest. So yeah, grateful. This was a Grateful American flight, and With that being said, because of the generous donations of our community, because of your generous donations, you as in the listener, 75 veterans were given their honor flight. We had 7 females, 7, which is a lot.
Yeah.
I mean, we want more. We want them all, but
I think last
really
flight
cool.
we had 2.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. Good comparison.
Mm-hmm.
We had 1 Purple Heart. We, just like every flight, majority was Vietnam. But we did have every conflict represented from World War II all the way up through global war on terrorism, which was really neat. Our oldest veteran was a 98-year-old World War II veteran, which we'll talk a little bit about him later, but his name was Bill. He was Air Force and Army. He was a weather observer in Italy.
Oh, wow. I do that every day. I observe the weather.
Well,
I know. He had an important job. Mine's just like, oh, hey, it's going to rain today.
Yeah.
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 He's probably way better at that.
It's actually interesting because I feel like in the last year, I've met several veterans who were weather observers, and they were weather observers prior to 1960.
Wow.
Like, I think this is the 4th one I've met.
The thing about technology has changed.
Certainly.
I mean, it was in manual mode. You know what I mean? Even, jets. We didn't have jets. We had planes, right? You can't call in help with a plane if there's a thunderstorm. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Those kind of things are big. And, dropping different kinds of, artillery. Where's the wind blowing?
Right.
Back then, they had to worry about that kind of stuff.
It's a big deal. Yeah. So Bill was doing that in Italy from 1944 to 1946. And Bill was also a part of another group on this trip from Bristol out in Worthington. And there were 4 people. So you had Bill, World War II veteran. You had Gene, who was a Korean War veteran. And then you had other Bill, who served just after Korea into Vietnam. And then you had Philip, who served between Korea and Vietnam. So all of them served before 1960. They all traveled together. And you can actually check out some more of their story. We'll talk a little bit about this later, but Stacia from 10 TV and her crew came along with us, but they also interviewed these 4 guys beforehand. Yeah. So I believe you can find that if you just search on YouTube, Honor Flight Columbus, right? Isn't that how you found it?
Yeah, you'll see. They had continuing coverage, which we can talk about continuing coverage that day. But that story, if I do recall, that was 2 days before. Yes. We were talking about, coming up.
Yeah, and they're going to show more from the flights in November as well. So they've got a lot of great content. Like I said, we'll talk about her later, but she's a killer interviewer with her veterans. And so there's some really cool stories that she captured throughout the day. So look for those in November. But yeah, so that was cool to have that group come, and the people who work at the Bristol, what was so cool is that they came to us and were like, hey, we've got these guys, we're like, well, let's get them on right now because they're not, 65. And they worked with us to provide the experience for them. And they were so great about it. Like, they helped them get their DD-214s ready, their applications ready, like everything. They were so great. And just truly an exemplary partnership of like, this is what we want in the community. It makes our job so much easier, which just means our resources can be spread about getting more veterans instead of having to focus on one group. Their help allowed us to even kind of share our resources more, which was awesome.
And I think that says a lot too, coming from my end, because I know you guys don't toot your own horn, but it says a lot about the operations staff and the mission of, between the board members, the staff, the volunteers. If you just mention something pure of heart, these 4 guys need to go, we're going to make it happen. All it takes is a mention,
And that was a big one for Megan, our director of veterans. Like, she is so good at prioritizing the way that needs to be prioritized when it comes to our veterans. And that is such a tricky thing because our hearts are involved with every single veteran we fly, which might sound dramatic, but it really is true. And, her especially, like, she gets every application. She goes through them by hand. She gets to know them. And then she's, processing their medical information. She's the one that facilitates the booking of them. So when this happens, she's chosen to book less than what we can take on a flight so that when this happens, when we get a World War II veteran or Korean War veteran or 4 people who served before 1960, she can pop them on. So, and she always makes sure that our flights are full. So She does an amazing job with that.
And I know just coming to that fact too, on that topic, I know we're talking about these 4 guys, from Bristol. If I recall, just by the wayside, I do remember there was 3 brothers on the flight. I know.
Oh, yes.
It doesn't always work out this way.
They weren't in this group, but yeah, there were 3 brothers on the flight.
It doesn't always work out this way, but there's always stories like that. A lot of these guys, I mean, you're lucky. Sometimes they don't fly alone. They've got their 2 brothers with them, that served, which...
Or your cousin. We had 2 cousins.
2 cousins. Yeah. Was there a husband and wife on this one at all? We've had that quite a bit.
Yeah, we have had that quite a bit. We didn't. I don't think we had husband and wife on this trip. We might have had partners.
But there are people that come in. I remember last season too. One of the guys was like Wisconsin or Montana. And his brother is here in Ohio, and he flew in to fly with his brother.
Because he wants to go with his brother.
Yeah, and it's pretty neat. I mean, if it's veterans deserve everything in the world that we don't give them and more. If there's a will, there's a way. So
correct. Yeah, I agree. And that's another thing Megan does so well at is coordinating and ensuring that every time if a veteran signs up with another eligible veteran, you will fly on the same trip. And you just think about the logistics of that. You're having to book them together, but they probably don't live together. Like you said, sometimes they don't even live in the same state. So you have to call each one individually, give them a date, and then try to reach the other one. And then, so she has this whole system to where, especially when you get the big groups, because we'll fly up to a group of 6. So thankfully the Bristol was super helpful because all 4 lived there and they kind of helped facilitated. But in general, when you have a group, let's say the 3 brothers, I'm not saying this happened with them, but just for example, if you have a group of 3 brothers, they probably don't all live in the same place. Yeah. So when you call to book Bob, then you got to call John. And then you got to call James, and James is like, "Oh, that date doesn't work for me." So then you got to call Bob.
Start again.
Yeah. So she has a really good system for that. And speaking of good systems, we had a lot of conversation about the weather this trip, and we always are watching the weather because why wouldn't you? But it kind of got as close as we could to. I think it was. I can't remember. I think it was the fall. It was either the fall or the spring of 2024, we had the weather report was like, hey, tornadoes. And we were like, what do you do? Because the whole premise of
Lincoln
your day
will look cool in a tornado.
Yeah, right. Where do you just imagine you're on the mall and a tornado is coming. Water. All of us?
Sure. It's a tornado. It's a tornado, not a hurricane. There's a difference. That logic is not sound. I get it, but that's what I would do.
Well, I guess what you're saying is there's a ditch.
Yep.
The reflecting pool is kind of like a ditch.
The ducks are there, and ducks always live. So they got the idea.
Okay, so a note to the operations staff. Yeah. Never consult with Alex about...
Listen, remember what I said about
weather plans.
Being a weather observer? That would not be my MOS, I think, in the military.
No, it wouldn't. But when we had the tornado, at the time I had recently left my job in DC, so I had a lot of connections there and kind of reached out to the American History Museum and was like, hey, there's a chance we might need... How do I go about getting tickets for 100? Yeah.
Can my friends come over?
Okay, how many are you? 100, 50. So that was a concern of ours. And so when I talked to the American History Museum, they're like, listen, here's what's going to happen. Because they have security there. And they're like, we're going to get you through safely. We'll make sure, obviously, you guys go through security, but in a way that's safe and quick to get you guys out of the weather. Come anytime. You don't need tickets. You don't need reservations. So, because at the time they were still taking reservations. I'm not sure if they still are now. But that was, and then they said, like, anytime you guys need to do this, you can do this. So cool. We kind of have that in the back of our minds. And then we had thought about a couple other things as well, like other plans that we could potentially do. And then the weather predicted was supposed to be like very stormy all day. But thankfully, like, it was kind of crazy. We just didn't, it was a little misty.
Was it because of the bugs?
No.
Did they bring the storm?
No. I think it was just like something about the weather systems. Oh, but okay. That's a question for Bill. You're talking about the ever invasive, terrifying spotted lanternfly.
Yeah.
Yes, those are in Ohio now.
What?
Yeah. So Beth had told us she was in DC 2 weeks ago. With her parents, and when they went to the Air Force Museum, they couldn't even see the base of the spire because it was covered in these Terrified. They're like bright neon red bodies covered up by like a scaled wing.
Oh, it's a dragon.
Kinda, yeah. And then when they get on you, they stick because they're tacky, and so they don't just like come off. So apparently, I've never read this anywhere, but anytime I've ever seen one, somebody yells, "Step on it! Step on it!" You're supposed to kill it like immediately. Anyways, so we talked about some rain plans. Talked about changing around Arlington. We ended up not purposely changing Arlington ahead of time, but ended up changing Arlington anyways. And not having a problem with the rain. So I had bought a bunch of new rain gear for this trip and didn't use any of it. So good and bad. Mostly great, actually, now that I'm what? So we did our normal thing in the morning and we, loaded up the plane. We flew with a Velo this time. And, when we got to DC, we had a hiccup.
Describe a hiccup.
So essentially, if you've been following along this adventure of people movers, and this part of the podcast is dedicated to my dear friend, Megan Jacob. Megan and I load and unload the plane, and she does the back, I do the front, and the EMTs assist with, veterans that need assistance in getting to their specific seat in the front. So there are people movers that basically recap. They're like big boxes that come up to the level of the plane because you're so far from the gate in the airport out on the tarmac. And then everybody gets in this box and then the box drives to the airport and lets you off. So the problem is it just takes some time because every aircraft has two doors, right? It has a rear. I think it's called the aft. If the front is the front, I don't know. But there's a front and the back. And the problem is that not every time are we allowed to use both the front and the back door. This time there was a communication error with our charter rep and her team. She was amazing. She was like that woman had to pivot so many times during this, but she was really, really great. However, originally they were like, you can only use one. So we're like, okay. So we start deplaning in our system because, you got to basically, you want to get the people who need to get to the buses there first, like leadership, like staff and stuff. So we have that whole plan. And then all of a sudden I get a call from Megan and she's like, there's a people mover on the back and they're knocking on the door. And I was like, so we're deplaning from the front and the back? And she's like, yeah.
Say go around.
So, can't come out and play, Mom. So then we start doing both. And then the charter rep is like, oh my gosh, no. Like upper leadership told me under no circumstances are we allowed to do that. And I'm like, all right, girl, like tell them to stop. And so everybody who had loaded up there had to get off and go back to the other one. And then they say, yes, you can do this. And so we start to do it again. And then they say, no, you can't do it. Some people were often on the same people mover 3 times. Like they had to walk the entire aisle of the plane 3 times. This is what I'll have to say about this. It could have been extremely frustrating. It did make us late, but it could have really made us late. And I will say volunteers, veterans, the flight staff, like flight attendants, the pilot, our charter rep, everybody was so kind, patient, positive, and efficient.
Yeah.
That I think it was actually the quickest we had ever loaded the wheelchairs on there before. And their flight attendants, the Avelo flight attendants this time were stars. Like some of the best I've ever worked with, period, not just with Avelo. They were just so, first of all, the way they interacted with our veterans, but they were also just so like they came to me and were like, okay, we were thinking, could we do X, Y, Z to help?
Yeah, proactive.
Yeah. And I was like, absolutely. And they kept telling us like, your system's amazing. Your system's amazing. And it's like, well, our system's only as good as people in it. Right. So it was really awesome to work with them this time. So that kind of helped, I think, that hiccup go smoother. So we did make a schedule change. We were supposed to go, I think that gate time at Arlington is like 10:30 or something. So Beth went ahead and moved it like we did on Mission 144 just to make sure. So we did. And, we did that later in the afternoon. So we started out with, Air Force and then we went to Iwo Jima. So I did take a picture for those at home of the spotted lanternfly. There was a bunch of dead ones at Air Force, but we didn't encounter I encountered one live one all day. And shout out
Is it alive still?
No. Shout out to Rodney Ellis, who was on this fight. It jumped from me to him after I did a cute little dance, and then somebody yelled at him to step on it, and he was just so chill about it. He was just like, why is everyone freaking out? Because they're invasive, Rodney. So we went to Iwo Jima, and there was we talked a little bit about Iwo Jima last time. I think because you and I both kind of were struck by the same
time perspective.
Yeah. And this time I feel like going into it, because we had reflected on that this last time, we had a group photo of like 5 or 6 Marines. And then also our blue bus leader, Damien, he is a Marine veteran. And so we took some pictures there, which I think it never ceases to amaze me. I think you've talked about this before. When you have like a lineup of veterans and they are all different generations or they served in different conflicts.
Natural click.
Yeah. And they're standing in front of their memorial. I think it's just so cool.
Yeah.
So cool.
I think it brings a whole new level to it because these guys can go to, their war memorials with their family, go on a special trip. This, you're standing, it doesn't even have to be the same generation. You're standing with people who have the same value of what, you value. You were in the same spot, no matter where you were in the world.
Yeah.
You went in with the same promise,
Agreed. And it was also cool. We had a female Marine this time, which was neat. So they all stood for that picture, which was really cool. And then we also had a couple of veterans who had pictures. And so one veteran had a picture of this strapping young man in uniform.
with the glasses.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. And so I was taking his picture in front of Iwo, and I said something like, I'm not going to lie to you. That's a handsome man. And he goes, that's my brother. And I was like, oh.
But you're handsome too, sir.
Yeah. So that, I always think that's really such a treat. I mean, it really is. I know that the veterans are doing it for them or their family members, or someone that they've lost or someone they care about. But it really is for us. Like, I know Beth she always gets a thrill from that as well. Like, I'll always see her if she sees or smells a picture pulled out, she is there. She's like, Mimi, I'll take a picture of it. She always sees it. She always gets it. And I get it, because it's so neat to see, somebody from that long ago as a kid. I mean, they're usually not even 21. And then them holding it now in front of their memorial, and a whole lot of life has passed. So, they did that. And then Damien, he loved this idea. One of the veterans had a picture of himself on his phone, and we took a picture of that. And then Damien wanted to do that. So
I saw a picture you took, and he was just cheesing. And
yeah, it's a great picture. Yeah. So definitely check out our gallery on the website. It'll be made available here probably in the next week or so. And you can see this group photo, but you can also see the picture of Damien himself. Which, shout out to Damien, because I was his ops person. So I was on the bus with him. He killed it this time. So our bus leads are responsible for some pre-flight communications, tracking information. And then on the day of, they're really a tour guide. Yeah. So we have a tour that they give, and, there's, you can read the tour and fulfill the job, but you can also read the tour and have a repertoire with these veterans. And our bus drivers our bus drivers are good at that too, but our bus leaders are good at that. Damien just killed it this time. I hope he doesn't listen to this podcast, because he's going to get a really big head. He was hilarious. He was so funny. People really connected with him. And I just felt like it might've been the most successful tour I've ever witnessed.
Yeah.
That's quite the statement.
Shout out, Damien.
Yeah. Shout out, Damien. Another really cool thing that we saw, and I'm going to just share this in the words of Natalie, one of our guardians. She had Jean and Bob, who were from the Bristol, and Jean had never seen Iwo Jima completed, but he was there during its construction and actually met the sculptor of the original, statue. And if you look at the memorial, On the side that's like facing the apartments in gold is the signature of the sculptor. And so it was cool to get to talk to him because he, you know, Gene is our Korean War veteran. And him getting to be there and standing next to that signature, he just said was really neat to see this giant thing in completion.
For decades, like, I wonder if that guy ever got that done.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So that was really cool. So Natalie, she had posted after the flight with some photos and said, I had the honor and privilege to be a guardian yesterday with Honor Flight Columbus. Mr. Gene saw Iwo Jima while it was under construction and met the sculptor. It was so neat to be with him to see it complete more than 70 years later. Thank you to Mr. Gene and Mr. Bob for hanging out with me yesterday and sharing your stories. I will remember this trip for the rest of my life. And then she finishes. I love when guardians do this because to me, this is when you know they really got it. She ends it with a call to any of her like friends on Facebook. If you know a veteran 65 years and older who served one day of active duty, it's just that like pass the baton moment that I think is so essential to reaching our veterans. So she was also hilarious. I really enjoyed her. We were on the plane and I was like, hey, I'm looking for Natalie. This was in the morning. And somebody else, like another guardian stood up and she like got up and I assumed she was Natalie because I said, oh, are you Natalie? And she goes, yeah, and like gets up. This woman must not have understood me. Her name was not Natalie because then Natalie stands up. And I was like, where are you going? Where are your veterans? And she goes, up there. And I was like, wait, you're Natalie? And she's like, yeah. And I was like,
but who's that?
Who? And she's like, I don't know. She also had the coolest hair. It was, she has like blackish hair, but then it had like blue highlight. There were different shades of blue. It was so pretty. Us operations staff were checking that out. But she was really awesome. And she seemed like she had a really good sense of humor with her veterans too. So hopefully she'll serve with us again. And then after Iwo Jima, it was time for lunch.
I was just thinking about what you said about that experience. It's not only, we're talking about the bus drivers and, you know, with Damien or whoever happens to be, not the bus driver, the leaders.
Yeah, I did the same.
Do not let Damien drive the bus.
Gosh, no.
I've never seen him drive in person, but just knowing his outlook on life, yeah, maybe not. He's got jokes. I don't want to put him on the road. But between himself and the actual guardians, those are, it's not like they don't remember support staff. I mean, veterans remember you guys because you're the ones laying down the law. No, you sit back down, right? That's the one I remember.
Great, that's what I want to be known for.
But you're there for every single thing. Like, hey, did you get lunch?
Yeah.
You know, talking around. But if you think about it, they hear the most out of a megaphone all day long from people like Damien.
Yeah,
and then,
Damien and their guardians.
And then the stories, I'm thinking from, this whole point, side point is the veterans. They spend all day with a stranger, share sometimes the deepest cuts of their life with a complete stranger, and then they have to walk with them to the next memorial, right? Not their family, not anybody, a complete stranger, which first of all takes a lot of guts from, just getting on that plane.
Yeah, the veterans.
The reason I was thinking was not too long ago we had the reunion. And there's one common thing that I hear over and over at the reunion, but also in other places, like, how was your flight? My guardian was awesome. They know their name every time. They're like, my guardian such and such was so much fun. They made it such a good experience. They talk about the guardian because that's who they shared the experience with. So the guardians that come, it's vital. I mean, you don't have to force them to do it because it's so natural. It's such an amazing moment, but it's so vital. You are their experience.
Yes.
And just being there, you don't have to talk. A lot of them don't talk. It's quiet. It's okay to be quiet, but having an open ear, it is life-changing for somebody. That's all it takes to be a guardian.
I mean,
to walk with somebody.
Yeah, and I like how you said that. You are the curator of their experience.
Because 2, 3, 4 years from now, these reunion people that come, they're like, the one thing I remember, my guardian was awesome.
Yeah.
They'll probably say something like, well, it rained, but I had such and such as a guardian, and they remember that person the rest of their life.
Exactly. Yep. Yeah, it's a great point. People like Natalie changing. Yeah. She's saying she'll remember this trip for the rest of her life. Well, I guarantee you, so will Gene and Bob. Yeah. So then we kind of, and I think it's cool to kind of stop before you go to the mall and have lunch. So you've spent some time together. So you've gotten to know your guardian a little bit. You've got to know your veterans a little bit. And you just kind of have this like easy breezy moment, if you want it to be, where you're just sharing lunch before you kind of go into what could be for some the heaviest part of the day. And interestingly enough, although I didn't go check it out because honestly, because if Megan had said she was going to do it, I would have gone with her. So I guess it was because I was chicken. But the Navy Memorial is right across the street from the National Archive.
Yep.
And I guess right now, or at least they did on last Thursday, they had the full Constitution on display, all of it, which is so cool.
Yeah.
And at first, her and I were just kind of joking.
That hasn't happened since Nicolas Cage.
That's the Declaration.
Oh, sorry. Bad movie reference.
That's disappointing. Megan and I had kind of joked about, yeah, let's escape. Let's look at it. But then I started thinking, I'm so glad she told me, because then it kind of hit me like, these guys are across the street. These guys and girls are across the street from the full Constitution, the very thing that all of them joined the service to protect. And it's not, and something that they all understand that I think generations that are removed from military service don't grasp the same, is that you're not just protecting a piece of paper, you're protecting an entire way of life, a cultural value system.
Yeah, it's the belief in what's the paper.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that was kind of cool to get to have. Yeah. So I kind of wish I could have gotten some pictures and stuff, but still to know it was there. And I guess maybe we should think about it differently, because it's always there. It's just not always on display. So that's even cool to think about. And then we left lunch and we went over to the mall. Again, we were able to all sit outside. We had to dry off some things a little bit, but it was really nice. It wasn't, the rain was fine. Did it rain? Did it rain?
I do remember it was pouring. It poured.
Oh, geez. And I think,
I'm surprised you guys didn't get flight delayed at the end because of rain coming that way.
I know.
Because it hit hard
we'll
here.
talk about the delay we had.
Yeah.
So anyways, we go to the mall and we did our presentation with our World War II veteran, which is so cool to have a World War II veteran at World War II, just as it's so cool to have them elsewhere. But we all know they're rare now.
Yeah.
And we had the flag presented by Andrew. Andrew has been serving with us for quite some time now. Like, he's in several flights. He serves with us. He lives in the DMV area, and he is a stoic, kind of more quiet person, but he works so hard. And it is like, I think when you get to know people, oftentimes we get to know them through conversation, but I think if your character is so strong that you don't even have to speak and we know who you are, I think that's pretty cool. And that's why us as an office, we've actually, one of the very first people we thought about honoring was Andrew. But we selected to do it this flight. So we asked him if he would present to our World War II veteran the flag. And the flag was sponsored this time by one of our EMTs, actually, Mike Shimko, in honor of several of his family members who had served. And that's always a really, really special, I think, moment, because I print out a card that goes in the flag and gives those names so that they can kind of be a part of that. And then Mike will receive photographs from the presentation, just as the women who are sponsored, their sponsors receive for the registration of their stories. So that's always special. And so we did that presentation. We did our group photos. I wanted to kind of turn this moment over to you. This was the final trip for our guys in the 174th.
Correct.
So talk a little bit about why, just kind of recap for the listeners, like, why is this their last trip?
Their last trip because their deployment in DC, Project Brutus, I believe. Is what it's
something
called.
Like that.
They're Ohio guys, and so they've been along every single flight amazingly. Just the most relatable, down to earth officers,
hardworking officers.
Yeah, hardworking officers. To see officers doing that, like humping it, loading wheelchairs, underneath of the you wouldn't see that. And I think that kind of throws veterans for a loop sometimes when they see it. They're like,
I think we talked about
they're
that.
like, where are your subordinates? Why are you guys doing that? But they love it. That's why they're there.
And actually, one of them was just.
Yeah. Albright.
No.
Oh.
Though I'm not talking about, that's true. Albright was awarded with a pretty major award in June. I'm talking about Lester.
Yeah. Colonel Lester.
Exactly. I was trying to say that.
So the last trip, not this trip, but the previous trip, it got leaked somehow. Somebody that was standing there, I think Albright had mentioned something.
One of them.
Yeah, and I remember looking over and I go, wait a minute. Colonel Lester, what are you hiding? And he goes, man, it's not supposed to be out yet. And, and he goes, actually, it's already happened, but he waited for the ceremony. You know, we talked about because his family, lives in Ohio.
I think we reposted it on Facebook, so you can go and kind of scroll through our Facebook and see. If not, it would be in our
their division had posted.
But the 174th.
Yeah, and but yeah, he had waited. It was a secret, whatever. And just looking at, we had mentioned the other day, looking at his uniform compared to the other ones. They were giving him a hard time, hassling him. He had brand new, brand new uniform compared. And everybody was like jaded, and they're like, "Oh, it's the colonel," sort of thing.
They were really neat.
But he's very humble about it. It's really, really neat. Those guys, they hold a special place in my heart. They've always been welcoming. To see, their passion for this from start to finish. I mean, they could be doing a lot of things. I mean, they're away from family, but also it gives a new perspective. And I think that's, like I said, with the veterans, it kind of shocks them. Because, these colonels, these captains that are just like
servant leadership,
literally tying shoes, on some of these guys that were privates way back when. And they're like, some of the guys are like, please don't do that. Sort of, it's not your job sort of thing. But it's a life of service for them. So it's pretty neat. It's their last one. But I remember, I'm going to hold them to it. Colonel Lester, he goes, don't worry though, we'll see you in 2027. And he said that. And I'm like, man, you're on another level. I don't know what I'm doing next week. You're coming back here on deployment and doing this,
Well, and they also all live in Ohio. So I'm hoping, I think it would be so cool to do like some kind of
I know Lester's Cincinnati. So
yeah. If we could do like a big thing, maybe at the office or something, have like a dinner catered and just like invite people to come, I think would be cool.
Yeah. And they're, honestly, part of the HFC family.
110%. That's why I think we're all kind of like, well, so how can we use them?
Yeah.
Because they're really special people. So we got a great group photo there at World War II. And then from World War II, headed over to Vietnam. And I always debate every time and you can attest to this, I'm always like, oh, should we just go straight to Korea first? Should we do... but I knew we had a couple other photographers as well. So we might as well, do that. And then Beth and I walked to Vietnam just to kind of provide. We knew that there were a lot of Vietnam veterans actually looking for names this trip. Mm-hmm. Sometimes we know that ahead of time. Sometimes we don't. And so we just kind of wanted to go down and be ready for that.
Okay. So there were a lot of names on a piece of paper. I remember seeing a picture that you took because we were talking about reflection, like, oh, that'd be cool to see a reflection, but the wall was more of a reflection than the papers were. But I could tell that there was a lot of names, and I haven't seen that many times. There was a story. I remember you had made a reel of it. It was about the Marine that wasn't even part of Honor Flight. I don't see lists, and lists kill me.
Yeah.
Which becomes more and more and more personal.
Yeah. So we had a veteran who came with. His guardian was Mike Schettinger, who's on our board of Schettinger Funeral Homes. Well, he's on our board. He's not on the board there. He is Mike Schettinger. And
he is Mike Schettinger.
He is Mike Schettinger. Mike is a really good guardian. And so I was down at the wall just kind of photographing. And I saw Mike was looking at names. And then this guy was kind of kneeling on the ground. And he got really worked up, just like emotionally, the veteran did. And the way Mike kind of knew how to read the situation, provide the support that he needed. And, he got emotional too, as did the other veteran that was with them. And they, like you said, they just had this list of names. And so at first I didn't know they had a list. I just thought it was just the one. And it was actually not until after I took the picture. They walked further down the wall and they just kept finding names. And so I don't know if Mike did this ahead of time or the veteran himself did it, but the list had like all of the panel numbers.
Yeah, I saw that. After each one, they're in parentheses.
Yeah. So I thought that was...
that cuts down on the work time.
Yeah.
A lot of time we're helping veterans and we're like, okay, which panel?
Well, we try to encourage our guardians, like, look ahead of time. And that just kind of allows them when they're at the wall to just like focus on the wall. But sometimes some of them need the process.
Distraction of that.
Yeah, they need to know the process, and you get to know the memorial in a different way. So that was really special to get to just kind of be there on the outskirts of that moment, photographing it for them. And so those pictures are going to be, they're also in the gallery on the website. You can check them out. They're 3 guys at the wall, 2 veterans, and Mike Schedinger.
It's pretty neat.
Yeah, it was really cool. And so I think what I loved about it is them standing in front of the wall with the reflection of the wall. You had the Washington Monument behind them. And then, like you said, the list in Mike's hand being reflected in the wall. It was pretty cool.
Yeah. If you zoom in quite a bit, you can see the names.
Yeah, you can literally read the names.
Yeah.
The other story that I got to interact with, I actually interacted with several stories at Vietnam this time. Sometimes I end up just spending a long time with one group. But this guy, or this particular group, was with one of our partners with the National Veteran Memorial Museum, was the guardian, who they provide amazing guardians. And his 2 veterans were trip buddies, which means they knew each other. They were frat brothers from OSU.
Woohoo!
Okay. And they had a name on the wall that they knew collectively. And watching them emotionally kind of take on that moment as a group was that those are just always the moments that you're like, wow, because, you know, Celeste, our director of volunteers, she pairs everybody together. And she doesn't often know the ins and outs yet. I mean, you don't know until you know. And that usually comes once everybody's met each other. But she just, I don't know. I mean, it just was such a great pairing. Just how they were all able to interact. And then Stacia from 10 TV was down at the wall and interviewed them and got their story. And I think there has to be something as a veteran with a heavy story like that. You know, you come to the wall, and whether, you know, some of them, like these ones, they wanted to share that moment. There has to be something about having a person that you don't know from Adam come up to you, ask you about it, and cultivate kind of this respectful, honoring conversation about your story and the story of the name you just found on the wall. And Stacia does that tenfold. Like, she's so good at what she does, being genuinely present.
It's a craft to approach that kind of situation with, you know, with true intent.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I just really enjoyed, I mean, I don't know her very well personally, but I just kind of stepped back and observed her a lot. And I was just really excited about that. And I think anytime they want to come on a flight, Stacia is more than welcome. I mean, she's and the veterans just really, it means a lot to them to know that somebody really cares, and somebody, especially in media, really cares, especially these Vietnam guys who were trashed by the media for so long. Yeah. I think there's also some healing that can happen with that. Yeah. And her camera guy was amazing too. They just, again, I've said this again and again. If we take you on a flight as media, you've got to be willing to put the camera down and do what's needed and have the conversations. And that's, you know, that was Stacia as well. So we also, I had a conversation with a veteran that I wanted to kind of bring up and spend a little bit of time on here. Not too much time, but just something very striking that I've thought about before, I think, because my mom has always posed this to me. I've been a kid of history forever. And so we would talk about these things, and she was a therapist. And so she always saw things very differently and more the whole picture rather than just the perspective of the person who's living it. So it kind of brought me back to that place. I had asked a veteran, like, oh, how's your day been? This was towards the end of the day. And he was like, oh, you know, it was good. It's been really good. Really good. And I'm like sensing the but. He said, you know, the memorials are really hard for me. They don't, essentially he was saying, like, they don't feel celebratory for me. And I was like, what do you mean they don't? You know, what are you feeling here? And he was like, well, I just keep seeing the faces of the Vietnamese families or the Korean families, or, you know, and he's like, not even just South Vietnamese, also North Vietnamese, people who were casualties of war, whether because they died or their life was completely shattered. And that's war, right? Like that's the heaviness of war. And I think in a lot of circles, that's not something that's, I mean, it's incredibly profound to think about the full impact. You know, you don't want to lean too hard on the patriotism of it all, where it's like, rah, rah, we win, you know, the impact was hard, but we won. I mean, there is impact of war. And that impact is felt at home and it's felt overseas in other people's homes because we're all people, right? It's that whole concept. So politics and right and wrong aside, I just think this concept of thinking about like the enemy are civilians too, or the enemy has civilians too. And that I think speaks to why when people come home, it's not always easy to come home.
I was thinking the element of honor flight, right?
Yeah.
And you know how we get a lot, especially these guys that I've talked to that are Vietnam vets, who, whether they have or haven't been in it, they haven't accepted. And I know I'm of the same mindset. I don't accept, people trying to do something nice, right? Because you deserve it. Because you don't always see that you deserve it, right? Other people see that. And so we talk to these veterans they're like, I don't deserve to go, or, I don't deserve to walk down the wall. I didn't do enough, for the guys down the wall. I didn't give that sacrifice. And you were talking about, these guys bring it home afterwards. Like, yeah, we won the war and everybody, thanks for doing your part. And these guys are like, you don't even know what my part was. It was so detrimental for the rest of my life, right? So when we say honor flight, we're honoring, I think it is kind of twofold. I'm sure it's threefold in some senses, but we always say honor those who couldn't be here. A lot of these veterans think it's just honoring them, right? It depends on how you see it, right? Because it's your road. You took the hard road. You made sacrifices in your life, to serve our country. And I know I have had conversations where people are like, I just don't understand why you're honoring me for the things that I did, right? And that's a self-reflection, because I can't imagine being in those shoes.
It kind of brings up the question, what are we honoring?
Yeah, exactly. And that's why I've always pivoted to, people are like, oh, I don't deserve it. I'm like, well, first of all, you do. You put your life aside, to serve this country. If you wouldn't have done it, that person in that moment in time wouldn't have been in your place. That affects freedoms, down the line. But also, it's about honoring those who could not be here, whether they were in war or they weren't, and they passed, they never got to hear about honor flight, It's about honoring your buddies or your comrades in arms. But a lot of those guys can't take that honor home.
Well, and I think too, like maybe we don't go deep enough on what we're honoring. Like maybe when we say we're honoring you, we're honoring your service. Maybe that's why it's so hard for them to understand, because it's like, my service. Mm-hmm. Seriously, like I did admin in Virginia. Yeah. Like, why are you honoring my service? But I think it's deeper than that. I think it's really like what we're honoring is the commitment to preserve my way of life. Yep. And because then it's like, it's not just about the ones who went and did the stuff in combat in country. It is about them, but it's also about the ones who played support roles. It's because what do they have in common? A commitment to preserve the way of life, to protect and preserve. And
I always think about, that we hear about, I was just I met the one guy, I think one of our students, her veteran, I actually had went to Izzy Geiger, her veteran. I had two different kinds. One was a battalion lieutenant, throwing artillery in Vietnam. The other one was Vietnam, but he was in charge of, I wish I could remember his name, but he was in charge of, he was in Hawaii, and he was taking the bodies of soldiers who didn't make it off the plane, checking them, through, and then helping these guys, pretty much off the plane who look like they've been through it all, try to get them back into normal civilian life. Like, hey, we're going to get you a flight home and everything. I'm like, that support role, it's a machine. Any organization is a machine. The Army at that time, it was a machine. It wouldn't have been possible unless people like you were able to support people like them. Yeah. So we're honoring, yes, those who can't be here with us, but we're honoring, you doing your part so they could do
your
theirs.
commitment to preserve and protect.
Yeah.
I like
It's
that
deep.
a lot.
And I think, but like you said, I think it all comes down to self-reflection of who you tell that you're honoring, you know, and what their perspective is. So.
Yeah, I like that. And speaking of, that kind of makes me think of a guardian that we had, Jim Everson. He works for Care Patrol. I think he is Care Patrol. Care Patrol, if
We've said that twice. He is shedding her.
Shedding her. I had never, like, I've heard of Care Patrol, but because Care Patrol has been a community partner of ours for a while, but what they do is it's actually kind of like the way Beth explained it to me is kind of like that middleman. So like if you have a loved one who needs care, like a living facility, his job, Jim and Care Patrol's job is to patrol your care. So they're going through and helping you think through the options, looking at what insurances are taken. I mean, that overwhelming process that is at the same time you're grieving a way of life, or you're about to grieve a way of life. I mean, there's so much to be said, whether it's for your loved one or for yourself, about that transition in life. It's one of the, I would imagine one of the hardest transitions you ever have to go through. So having an organization like that is they exist to help in that, I just think is really cool. And you could see his heart for people as he was a veteran. I mean, Beth and I kept saying all day when we would see each other, we were like, he's good. He's a great guardian. So he was one, like what we were saying, understanding that he's honoring the commitment that these men and women made. It was just really cool to see that kind of service.
Yeah.
So after we finished kind of the National Mall, we went to Arlington National Cemetery after that to see the changing of the guard, which is always really special. The tomb guards, actually not the ones that were on duty, obviously, but came out and spoke with our group again, which is really cool. They've been doing that a lot, which I think it's kind of become more of a normal thing that they do every time, which I think is really special. And if you're familiar at all, when you go from DC to Virginia and you cross over the bridge and you get to Arlington, there are some memorials along the side of the road.
Yeah.
And one of them is to the Seabees.
Mm-hmm. You won't miss it.
You won't miss it. It is a beautifully...
It'll make you double take as you drive.
It is a beautifully sculpted man reaching out to a young child. It's a beautiful piece. Mm. I mean, not... ha, ha, ha. I just meant...
Tell us how beautiful
it is. Yeah, I'm done with that one. The joke is always, do we have any Seabee on board? Who modeled for that? Yeah. You know, ha, ha, ha. Yeah. And we don't usually ever have Seabees. Like, they're few and far between. We had 2 Seabees this time. One came from my bus, and I had the privilege of snapping his photo. His name's Ray. He was E7, which is a chief petty officer. Served, get this, 1974 to 2005. So this man served. I'm just going to walk this through because this blows my mind. He served just at the tail end of Vietnam.
You did it, man. You can go home now.
Yeah.
No,
I'll do that again.
I'll stick around a few more times.
I'm going to stay committed. I mean, that's what he did. He stayed committed to protecting and preserving our way of life. Yeah. So he went Vietnam, then he served up through Desert Storm, Gulf War, and then up through Global War on Terrorism. And actually he served, he has a National Defense Medal. So like he served, he did the things, you know.
He did all of the things.
Yeah. So Navy, Seabee. We do get veterans who served for long periods of time, but that was like unreal to me. Then we went and we ate dinner at Women's. We had 7 women, like I mentioned, which was really special. You can check out their photos in the gallery as well. And then we came home to the welcome home. I don't want to spend a lot of time on this because we already talked about the hiccup with the people mover, but we had a hiccup again. And I'm just going to say, I don't know who our pilot was. He will remain anonymous to protect his position.
He gets stuff done.
But let's just say we were delayed for like an hour because the 2 overhead bins right next to my seat would not close. And apparently you can't fly if they're open, even if nothing's in it, which like, sure, I get it. Regulations, blah, blah, blah. Lori Cronin is sitting there with her roll of duct tape. And she's like, can I just, and they're like, well, maintenance has to, there's all these regulations, whatever. We respect that. I don't know what is exchanged, but the pilot comes back, grabs her duct tapes those closed and looks at us and goes, it's fine. It's not the engine. And then just goes and sits down and we fly away. And so that was really great.
Tell the man he can fly. He's ready to fly.
He's ready to go. He's like, these people have been sitting here so long, they're going to start getting cranky. Everybody stayed really patient again. The flight attendants were amazing. They started passing out snacks. So I was fine. I got 2 bags of chips.
Woo.
I was super needy.
What kind of chips?
Actually, Fritos and Cheetos, which Damien said smells like feet. Which is true.
Cheetos and Fritos.
They do smell like feet. But he must smell a lot of feet to like be so familiar with it. Just saying. Anyways, so we landed. We had a really good welcome home crowd. I never heard the final number, but it looked pretty standard. So I'd say about 1,500. We had several guardian assistants who are the people who, if you're interested in volunteering in this capacity, it's really neat. You can push wheelchairs through the welcome home, carry bags, take photos for them. Just to be able to make sure that they're able to fully enjoy this part of the welcome home. You can reach out to our director of volunteers at honorflightcmh.org or sign up on the website. But anyways, so we had some from Deloitte, which is really cool. So if you have a group of people, maybe your book club, maybe I don't know. That's the only hobby I have.
You went straight for book club.
That's the only hobby I have.
Yeah, I don't know too many book clubs, but you went for that.
Yeah. Anyways, your small group of friends and family. You want to sign up together. This is a great way to get involved. I'm embarrassed. The other big thing we had happen at the welcome home, so this flight was, which we never said, September 25th, 2025. On Tuesday of that same week, we had a really big fundraiser of all of the Texas Roadhouse in Central Ohio donated 100% of their profits.
Yeah, that's huge.
From their sales from I think 3 p.m. to 11 p.m., something like that. And on top of that, we had some amazing volunteers who said, hey, I'm going to go out to these Texas Roadhouses. I'm going to go with the applications and I'm going to talk to people, which is amazing. We had a lot of coverage for that all the way up into Mansfield with Bill Herzog. So cool. Yeah, Barry was in Hilliard. Terry was in Lancaster. We had them everywhere, which was really, really cool. So I think what I was told from someone who looked it up on ChatGPT, the restaurant profit margins are 10%-ish per meal. So, we were Beth and I were talking, we're what should we expect? And I was like, I don't know, maybe 5,000. She was like, yeah. Yeah, maybe 5 or 10. And I was like,
that'd
be cool.
5,000.
We were like, yeah, that would be really cool. When we got the last total, they shared it on Thursday night at the welcome home. 10 of the 15 had reported. So there were still 5 who hadn't reported yet. Over $27,000. That was a lot of steak.
Yeah, that's a lot of steak.
People showed up though.
Baked potatoes are good though too. That's what people went.
True.
Yeah.
People lines were wrapping around the building is what I was told, all over, which was so cool.
Yeah.
So, if you missed that fundraiser, there's another one coming up. Saturday, October 4th from 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Honor Flight Night in Cumberland. So it's a little drive for us here in Central Ohio.
It's an annual piece.
Yes, I've heard it's worth it. We have people who go and book a hotel that night just because they want to stay the whole time. They do so much. It's the Brian Hartman Memorial Honor Flight Night. And last year at one event, they raised $30,000. A lot of this money goes towards our Guardian Assistant Fund, which is an incredible opportunity because the Guardian fee is $450, which is, it's not pocket change.
Yeah.
And you can request at, we're not going to ask questions. We don't care why you're asking. This is what this money is for. And that will cut your fee in half. So it makes it far more accessible.
Yeah.
You can use it multiple times. So we are really excited to see how this one goes. Not even just financially, but seeing everybody come out in memorial to Brian Hartman and in honor of Honor Flight Columbus.
Yeah, that's neat.
Yeah, so if you want to get involved, that's a great way. If you're busy Saturday, go ahead and clear your calendars for October 16th.
October 16th. What do we got going on?
Oh, well, I think we got another flight.
Oh, hey.
Mission 146.
Hey, and then we could do this all over again.
All over again.
Then I got plans for that day.
All right.
I'll make a podcast.
Okay. Come out to the Columbus Airport around 8:45 p.m. ticketing level to welcome home our veterans.
Perfect. Once again, this season and this episode is sponsored by
Specialty Cast House.
We appreciate you guys coming out. Thank you to all the Guardians, the veteran support staff at this last mission. It was a complete success. Special shout out to Captain Duct Tape. You did the job. We appreciate you.
Thanks, Lori.